Hi guys. It's been a while since I uploaded. It's actually been like almost 3 weeks since I uploaded. It's been a really long time. I'm planning on uploading a video from now on daily again, and to have a more consistent upload schedule. Even if I don't film videos every day, I'm planning on hopefully, like, I know guarantee no promises. I can't guarantee anything, but I'm planning on hopefully being able to like being able to like release videos on a daily basis, even if I'm not able to film them on a daily basis necessarily. Um, okay, yeah, and what else I'm going to say? I'm also planning to diversify this channel and just diversify the type of content I do. I don't want to only stick with anime and manga. I want to do other stuff as well. I want to explore new things and I kind of want to just explore new ideas and complete do basic stuff. I want to be able to diverse. I guess I'm repeating myself. I just basically want to diversify and content. I said this in my last video. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one specific thing, and that's why I'm doing this right here. So basically, um, what I'm planning to do right now is actually I'm going to take we're going to do a different style of video than I did before, right? So because before I did a video on the Yu-Gi-Oh manga review, right? This time I'm planning on doing a different uh, a video type of thing, and I'm trying to actually, I guess, I'm trying to, I don't know. Oh yeah, sorry, I had a brain fart for a short while there. What I'm trying to do is essentially I'm going to do a political quiz today because I think that'd be interesting, and I want to see where I stand on certain issues, right? So actually, really quickly, I'm gonna go to mystery and repeat. Right?
Hey, you! Hey, yeah, you! Don't you want to play something different? Bring it up!
There is actually something right here. 10 groups, right? The 10 groups is what it was. I just watched the Mr. Beat video, so that's why I'm going right here. Um, this is for the plan. I think I plan on using. Just press click here to start. So 10 groups instructions will be presented with a series of statements for each one. Click the button with your opinion on it. Note that the shorter version is less accurate. Proceed to shorter version, shuffle. Proceed to shorter version, unshuffle. Proceed to detailed version, shuffle. Proceed to detailed version, unshuffled. I'd say proceed to detailed version, unshuffled. So there are 150 questions here. So number one is, in the current system, it is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Um, I agree. I don't necessarily strongly agree, but I do agree with the statement. Without state intervention, monopolies would violate human rights. I still agree with this, but it's less so. I partially agree with this because, in my opinion, I think without state intervention, monopolies they might be a bad thing for the economy, but I don't think they necessarily violate human rights. Although I'm not like too educated about this. I can change my position later on. For now, I'll go with partially agree. So private organizations and corporations cannot be trusted and thus need to be regulated by the government. I'd agree with this. I don't think private organizations and corporations can really be trusted. They have the in my opinion, they have the profit motive incentive first, and that's the most important thing to them, which is why I don't really think they can necessarily be trusted. Most corporations should be state owned. Okay, this is like a socialist question. this like a Marxist Leninist question or something. I don't know. I disagree with socialism. In both in theory and in practice, but more so in practice than in theory. But since this isn't directly stating socialism, it's just saying most corporations should be state-owned, not necessarily socialism. I'm going between neutral, unsure, and ambivalent or partially agree. I'd go with this one. Okay, a free economy is the best tool for establishing wages and the price of labor. So a free economy isn't always the best tool, in my opinion. It can be at times, I think, but I don't think it's always the best tool. I think government regulation is more important. Like government like intervention and stuff. I think that's more important because, as I mentioned before, most companies care about the profit margins the most. But I think a free economy is a positive thing overall. So I'm going to say partially agree with this. So the market regulation regulates itself. Unjust monopolies will not survive in a free market. I actually like disagree with this statement. I think that the market can regulate itself, but I think that like it's possible unjust monopolies will survive in a free market. If you don't know about this, I think Adam something made a great video about like anarcho capitalism on it, and so I recommend you watch that. Like he mentioned how like it's gonna just turn into feudalism or like this kind of Christian theocracy, or not Christian theocracy, but like kind of any theocracy, and the third one is a communism. But no, in the video, it's very clear that the monopolies do exist even in a free market. They do survive in a free market. So I disagree with the statement. A regulated economy is more unfair for the people when compared it to a laissez-faire economy. I disagree with this. I think Keynesian economics, I don't know much about it, or like a regulated economy is better for the people than laissez-faire economy. I think that's been proven multiple times. Not proven multiple times, like necessarily, but like accomplished. Well, I mean, no, it has been, right? Like the Nordic model and stuff. So I think I disagree with this. Taxation for the rich should be lowered or even abolished. Okay, I strongly disagree with this. I myself am not rich, so I'm probably heavily biased. I think that it should be very much increased, and I think maybe not even in like necessarily income, but just like in wealth in general. I think that should be money should be used by the public good. Although probably only saying this because I'm not a billionaire myself. So if I probably was like a billionaire or multi-billionaire, I'd probably have a different opinion on this. So I do admit I'm very biased here, and this is probably like not necessarily correct opinion, but I strongly disagree with this. Communism is an ideology that would never work in practice. I agree with this. I don't strongly agree, but I do agree with this because it's been shown time and time again that communism has been tried, but it's just failed. So that's why I think I just only agree with this. So freedom of business is the best practical way a society can prosper. I don't know what this question really means. I don't really understand it that well. Freedom of business is the best practical way a society can prosper. I partially agree with this. I think freedom of business is good. Is it the best practical way a society can prosper? I don't know. I don't think so personally, but it might be. I have no clue. Government social programs should be replaced with private charities and organizations. Okay, so I'm going to disagree with this, and the reason I disagree with this is because although this might work in practice and in theory, although this definitely works in theory, it might not work in practice, and even if it does, it's very like risky. It's like not as stable as government social programs because it's possible that the charities and organizations might one day go bankrupt or decide to like stop giving any money. So it's like what happens then, right? The people don't have any guaranteed source of income. So I do disagree with this statement. If wages exist at all, the minimum wage should be lowered or stagnated or even abolished. Ooh. Okay, so there are multiple viewpoints on this. I personally believe that a minimum wage should be abolished because I think I've read up somewhere that it can like reduce inflation and all that stuff. Reduce pricing for like houses, groceries, etc. So I think it should be abolished. I don't think, but in the current society, right? Here's the thing, right? If minimum wage is abolished, I think then universal basic income should definitely be implemented. And even if it's not abolished, I still think universal basic income should be implemented. Like either way, I think universal basic income should be implemented because I'm very much in favor of that. And if universal basic income exists for anybody, regardless of what they're working at, like regardless of if they're working or not, then I don't think minimum wage should even exist in the first place because it's not necessary. But I do recognize that in the current society we live in, universal basic income is not even like it's not even like a livable wage, right? I'm not even sure. Like there's some unemployment benefits the U.S. gives, but like I don't know much more than that. Honestly, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to agree with this, right? Like in a theoretical, like my ideal environment, I agree with this, but practically speaking, I kind of want universal basic income. I don't really, but if not that, I guess minimum wages should be exist. So maybe, but I think if we lower it or stagnate it or even abolish it, I think that'd be better for like just like the middle income people, and I think the poor people shouldn't be poor. Right? I don't think anybody should be in poverty. I think everybody should have universal basic income. Again, that's in my position. It's just I don't know. I don't necessarily think minimum wage is necessary. So I'm gonna say agree with this. The market should be able to provide a majority of healthcare services. I disagree with this. I think healthcare is a human right. I don't think markets. I don't think businesses should be able to own it. I think everybody should have equal access to it. Well, okay, even if it's not equal access, I think everybody should have a base standard of access to it. And if the market controls it, like a majority of it, some people probably won't be able to access it, like the poor people or like the unwealthy people. And like this happens in today's society as well. Which I just think is it's going to become much more if the market does end up controlling the majority of healthcare services. So I think it's going to be much worse in that case. So I actually disagree with this. So taxing citizens using involuntary methods can be considered an act of theft or aggression. Ooh, I agree with this. I don't think. I mean, I know taxation is required. I just don't think it. Like, I think it's kind of. I'm not, I don't know if it's theft. It is similar to theft in my opinion, but it's like definitely not respected by everyone, and not everybody likes it. I don't think any almost I don't think any almost any I don't think most people are paying their taxes right, and I think it is in some way like a form of aggression. I think it's necessary for a stable society, right? Definitely, but I don't know. I definitely do see it as well as like an act of aggression. Justice system should be private, partially privatized, even fully privatized. I'm gonna have to disagree with this. Okay, no, I strongly disagree because this makes no sense. The justice system is already broken and messed up, and already is unfair to black people and stuff. So like, racial minorities, etc. It's already unfair to those people. So I think this should just make it even worse. By privatized it all. So I think it should get much fairer. I think it needs to reform, and I don't think it can be reformed by getting privatized. So that's why I strongly disagree with this. Capitalism is the most practical and realistic economic system yet. So since this includes a yet, I will have to agree with this because most successful countries in the 21st century do follow capitalism. But I think eventually a better economic model can surpass it, and like in the future, it will be able to surpass capitalism. Right? Like in the future, not yet. We're not at that position yet, which is why I agree with this. In the future, I do think a better alternative will exist. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. Okay, so I have like I'm split on this issue, right? Because inheritance, from my perspective, because I'm like from like a middle class family in America, so pretty well off. I'd say I think inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth, mostly just because my parents own property and I want to get that property, and I want that property to be mine once they like pass away. Hopefully they don't anytime soon, but I do. Um, at the same time, I can see why a lot of people would not want that, like especially like rich billionaire and millionaire sons, etc. And I don't want that either for rich billionaire and millionaires, but I don't think that's necessarily justified. I think it's more of a form of envy and jealousy. So I'm gonna have to agree with this, right? I'm just gonna have to agree with this. The harder you work, the more you progress up the social ladder. I partially agree with this. I do agree with this in theory, but like in practice, I don't think this is exactly realistic in like a good like in our current society. So I partially agree, but not fully agree. From each according to his ability to each according to his needs. Okay, this is a standard Marxist quote, which I mean I strongly agree with this, right? You should do. I don't even understand what this means, but it seems good, right? Like if you have a good like your needs should be met based on your ability. Maybe is that what you're saying? In which case, I do strongly agree with it, but I'm not 100% sure. I know it's a Marxist quote, and I dislike Marxism and socialism, but this is one of the things where it's like, yeah, no, I kind of agree with this. So I strongly agree. Oppression by corporations is a huge concern. I strongly agree with this. I mean, corporations are oppressing people every day, so it's like I think it's a huge concern for sure. The means of production should belong to the worker. Okay. I said I was opposed to socialism, but I do agree with this. Like to a certain extent, I do agree with this. So I'm going to say partially agree, not fully agree, but I do partially agree with this because I consider myself like a social democrat. So I don't believe in socialism, but I also don't believe in like unfettered capitalism. I believe there has to be like middle ground restrictions. Like I support like more of like the Nordic model, not America's horrible capitalism right now. Like the America's horrible capitalistic society right now. I support more like the Nordic model, welfare states, stuff like that. I don't support necessarily socialism like Cuba and Venezuela, although they aren't real examples of socialism. Like, there's not been a real example of socialist countries that's actually succeeded. At least not that I know of, or not that it's very popular in the U.S. Maybe in other countries, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's ever succeeded, at least from my limited knowledge of the world history and stuff. So, which is why I only partially agree with this. Roads and transportation should be publicly owned. I strongly agree with this. I think roads and transportation should be publicly owned because I mean it's a need for society. I don't know. I don't see any reason it should be privatized. Economic inequality is still a very serious problem. I definitely strongly agree with this. I think that economic inequality might be one of, if not the most serious problem in American society, right? So, yeah. Paying workers with food is preferable than paying with money. No, I partially disagree with this. I understand what it's getting at, but I think money is the main form of currency we have right now. Whether you're for or against it, it just simply is the main form of currency. Nobody can deny that. So I think it's more valuable than paying people with food because people can buy food with money as long as it's like equivalent, right? As long as it's like an equivalent amount of like food and money, I would. I think it's fine. I do partially disagree with this. An autocracy is a more beneficial system than any, is more beneficial than any democratic system. Okay, so let's check what autocracy is real quick. So, an autocracy is a form of government in which absolute power of the state is concentrated in the hands of one person, whose decisions are subject neither to external legal restraints nor to regularized mechanisms or popular control. Oh, I mean, I strongly disagree with this. I'm a huge supporter of democracy. I think it's the best government system we have so far. I'll look to be better with. And I just overall think it's a very good system, like for system of government. So I strongly disagree with this. I've heard of like tyranny of the majority and stuff like that, but to me that doesn't really matter compared to other stuff. I don't really care about tyranny of the majority necessarily. So to me, it's not too important. I mean, but that's entirely different video, an entirely different topic. So I would say I strongly disagree with this. A beneficial democracy requires high levels of education. I strongly agree with this because any democracy I think needs education. If the electoral college is at all, electoral votes should need to be adjusted so that different states have regions representation. Okay, so I'm 100% opposed to electoral college. I think it's undemocratic. I think it's an obsolete system that doesn't need to exist anymore. I think we should get out of the way. I much prefer. I hate forced past the post. Not only electoral college, also forced past the post, and I much prefer proportional representation. So yeah, but I do agree with this. I think this is at least marginally better than what we have right now in the U.S. But, yeah. Democracy increases the risks of instability and corruption. Ooh, maybe, but I mean, I think any political system, I think any system, any governmental or political system will have instability and corruption at least a little bit. So I mean, I don't know. I did partially disagree with this, and maybe, but like, at the same time, I feel like almost every single what government system has instability or corruption. So I disagree with this. Only allowing scientific experts to run for an election is preferable than the death of a regular democracy. No, I disagree with this because if you only have scientific experts and have experts in other fields like the economy or like I don't know, like social science. Well, social science is technically science, but like but like the law, right? The law is a very important part of society. It's a very important part of democracy. But scientists don't know shit about the law. Well, they do know some stuff about the law, but they don't. A lot of them. don't know almost anything about the law, so I disagree with this. Liberal democracy is the least worst system for leadership. Okay, wait, what? Liberal democracy is the least worst system for leadership. What's a liberal democracy again? Liberal democracy, American government cannot discriminate against specific individuals of justice, checks basic strategic freedom, it's in freedom of speech, provides for collective society, or collective distributes economic and social benefits. No, least worst system for leadership. I don't know. I don't know what it means by least worst. Doesn't mean like it's still bad, but it's the least bad compared to the other ones. I mean, I guess, but I support liberal democracy, so I'm not 100% sure with the way this question is phrased. I'm not 100% sure what it's getting at, though. So I'm going to say neutral, even though I do support a liberal democracy. I think, even though I do highly support a liberal democracy, violence is not acceptable when protesting the government. Yeah, I agree with this. Not because I'm afraid of the government officials getting hurt, but rather it's just going to cause even more instability and even more chaos in the communities and in society. And I don't think that should be. I think peaceful protest is the best way to go, even though it's very easy to get mad and angry, especially with people who are at the top, who are at the power, who are screwing over the middle class and the lower class Americans and people barring this sort of stuff. All not in America, but all over the world. So, but I do strongly agree with this. It's not acceptable. I think peaceful protest is a much better option. Although I do recognize a lot of us can get mad and angry and emotionally charged very frequently. But still, sacrificing some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from acts of terrorism. Okay, no. So I strongly disagree with that, and the reason I strongly disagree with this is because I think this is a BS reason. I don't think it should be used as a justification as all, and I think it's completely made up, completely fabricated. I don't think a single one of our civil liberties uh, should be sacrificed in order to protect us from active terrorism. Because the thing is, right? The thing is, right? One thing I really support is internet privacy and internet anonymity, and I think the entire internet should be anonymous and free to use by everyone. So most people don't. Most people in the government don't. That this is a bipartisan issue, or this is an issue with a bipartisan agreement both Republicans and Democrats would oppose my views on this most likely, but they would probably want the civil liberties to be sacrifices and kind of want to use internet and anonymity and stuff like that. More censorship. Which I'm strongly against censorship. I'm a strong supporter of the First Amendment. I believe freedom of speech is like necessary for a functioning democracy. It's like one of the cornerstones, one of the keystones of a functioning democracy. Without freedom of speech, I don't think that a functioning democracy or heck, even a functioning society can exist properly. Right? So, yeah. But anyways, back to the point was like America claims that a lot of these curbing of civil liberties is actually protecting us from terrorism, but the rates of terrorism in the past 20 years since the Patriot Act was signed hasn't decreased. In fact, it's actually increased quite significantly. The rates of crime and stuff like that. So even though our civil liberties are getting chipped away day by day, the crime, terrorism, and stuff like that is still increasing day by day. So I don't know. I don't think that's a good position to hold. So I strongly disagree with that. When a threat arrives, some liberties should be sacrificed in order to maintain stability and prosperity. No, no. Maybe it's just me, but I really value freedom. I really value like freedom and so being able to freedom of like choice. That's when like pro-abortion, even in this like Roe v. Wade situation, I'm very much a good freedom like defender. I love freedom, and again, that's what, like one of the main reasons I'm pro-abortion and pro-choice. So I mean, I don't strongly disagree with this because I can somewhat understand where this is coming from, right? But I still disagree. Strength and substantial authority is required for a successful and efficient government. Yeah, I mean, I agree with this. I don't know exactly what it means. Like, does it mean like a dictatorship or something? Like, in that case, I like definitely disagree. But like, from like a democracy, even democracy needs some strength and some substantial authority, right? So I don't know. I think that's really necessary for all systems. But I don't support dictatorship. I'm 100% against dictatorship. In fact, I know this is an unpopular opinion, a relatively unpopular one, but I support anarchy more than dictatorship. So that's just should go to show how much I hate dictatorships, and especially military stuff. Wait, shit. Did I wait back? Oh yeah, okay, 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 okay. I thought I misclicked. So many problems in society are often solved quickly and easily by large government. I'm not sure about this. It's possible. It sounds plausible, but at the same time, I know big and large government can fuck people over so many times, and I know it's probably happened so many times. I'm just not that educated. I don't know enough incidents or situations where this has occurred in both like the positive side where the government has actually solved like crises relatively quickly, and then like the other experiment where the government's like just fuck people over more, right? So it's like I don't know. It's really relevant. So I'd say I'm I'm neutral to this. If a person has nothing to hide, that person has nothing to fear. Okay, no, I strongly disagree with this, and the reason I strongly disagree with that is I think it's bullshit. If you don't, I value privacy. It's probably my number one political issue. I'm not gonna lie, other than like guns, for example. But yeah, I definitely support that. I definitely think. I don't think that that's a bullshit statement. Like, if somebody has nothing to fear or nothing to have fear, they have nothing to hide. Like it's a bullshit statement. I mean, you might not fear something, but you might not want everybody knowing about it. It's just like it's a bullshit statement. In my opinion. Again, a martial law is appropriate if a nation is undergoing crisis. Okay, so the problem with this, right, is that martial law is appropriate in my opinion when a nation is undergoing a crisis. However, at the same time, it's very hard to tell when a nation is actually undergoing a crisis, when it's like just complete fabrication by the government, or it's like not as serious as it's seen, right? So I'd say this only applies like in like mass scale wars, for example, like what's happening with Russia and Ukraine right now. Then I think that's appropriate, but in a lot of instances, like one of the examples would be like the recent trucker protests in Canada, right? I'm pretty sure some de facto version of martial law was used, and it's like I don't know, I don't think that was warranted in that situation. I think that was completely unnecessary, even though it wasn't actually martial law. And don't go into comments saying, "Oh, Canada didn't invoke martial law with the protests or truckers and stuff." It's like I know it wasn't martial. It was like something similar to that. Right? I don't think it's necessary unless it's like in very extreme circumstances. So, although I do agree with this, I'd say I don't trust the governments enough to determine one that's going undergoing through a crisis because in like the Ukraine situation, I think then they seriously are going undergoing a crisis or not. But like for example, like Canada protests, the trucking protests, I think they want that also. I mean, I partially disagree with that. Okay, any action that does not impose aggression on any person should not be considered a criminal offense. I strongly agree with that. I don't know. I'm personally just very anti-crime in general. I'm very pro freedom. So if something doesn't affect another person, if it's not aggressive to another person, I don't necessarily think it should be a criminal offense. Although, well, I guess technically theft is aggression in some form, even though it's not violent. It is a kind of aggressive, where it's like giving you an applied aggressive thing, right? Maybe you can make the case it's not aggressive. Maybe I'm not sure. In that case, maybe. But like what I mean is like most instances, yeah, you know what? No, I'm kind of neutral. I'm sure. I don't necessarily think that's 100% true, right? I think that is true in some circumstances. It's just I don't always think that's true. So yeah. All authority should be questioned strongly. I agree with this. I think all authority should be questioned. I don't think we should trust anybody like 100% without first questioning them out in the art because government can easily be corrupt and government officials and politicians can easily become corrupted. So, the famous quote is like that's some old guy from the 7th century BC or something. Where, like, power corrupts and like absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I think that's 100% true. Definitely for sure. The existence of the state is a violation of our liberty and rights. I disagree with this. I don't know. I think the existence of a state isn't a violation of our violation of our liberty and rights. Without a state, there would be nothing to enforce our liberty and rights, right? So it's like I disagree with this. Any drug should be legal as long as other people don't have to take the consequences. Yeah, no, I strongly agree with this. I'm very pro those. Because again, man, I'm very pro freedom, right? And as long as it doesn't affect anybody else, or have any negative consequences to anybody else, I think it's fine. Whether or not the state is democratic, it is still oppressive. I partially agree with this. Like, I guess technically, all forms of states is oppressive. Just because it's oppressive doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I know negative oppressive has a very negative connotation to it, but like let's check the definition. Let's check the dictionary definition of oppressive. It means unjustly inflicting hardship and constraint, especially on a minority or other suburban group. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, all forms of government do not necessarily support the minority. I don't, again, I touched on this like a while ago, but like, I don't think tyranny of the majority is anything. I think it's kind of overblown. I don't think it's much of a problem. Although I can only say that because I myself am in the majority, right? If I was in the minority, like if I was like a white cishet straight, if I wasn't like a white cishet Christian male, you know what I mean? In like American society, I'd probably have a very different view on this. But so I do some think it is impressive to minority groups like all the time. So I guess I'd agree with this, but I still think it's important. I still think it's necessary, and I think democracy is probably one of the best forms of government we have right now. Environmental activism and social pressure are a more effective way of saving the environment when compared to government action. No, I think no, I strongly disagree with this. I think activism and social pressure is nothing compared to government action because it's all talk. Yeah, sure, it's spreading awareness, but nothing's being done about it until the government actually does something more, right? So I think government action is much more important than environmentalists and like social pressure and shit like that. No, it's still important, right? Like environmentalism and social pressure, it's still important for the government to take those steps. If I first do like first steps, like for the government to actually take action, but the government taking action is infinitely better, like has infinitely more beneficial. So the government taking actual steps to like sort of like I guess save the environment and stuff is infinitely more important than these like social activists and other stuff like that. Not to say they're not important, but just like in the grand scheme of things, like the government action is more important than a bunch of people talking about it, raising awareness. Though that's important too, I just don't think it's as important as the government action. So governments should stay out of the people's daily lives. I strongly agree with this. Again, I think this, my views are very contradictory, as you can see by now. But I personally believe in small governments. That's my opinion. The police was not made to protect the people, but to uphold the status quo by force. I don't know. I don't know. It's possible it was. I would have to do like a historical context and historical analysis on this. I really don't want it right now. I kind of want to just get this quiz over with because we're only 45 out of 153 questions, and I probably was going for nearly 30 minutes or something already. So dismissing mutual such I'm sure such bullying. Okay, victimless crimes should not be considered crimes. Yeah, no, that's not really good with this. No, this could be wrong, but the main like example I'm using, right? Main example I'm using will be like cheating on a test or something. I think that's a victimless crime. I don't think it should be considered a crime. I think nobody should be punished for that because a lot of people do it. So it's whatever. Your notification should be like, okay, so I watched a video on CGP grade explaining during notification. It seemed very radical. I don't think it was a good idea, but there are certain instances where I feel like, wait, hold on. Jury notification should be legal. Wait, what? Let's check this real quick. Um, I don't think this should be illegal in like a perfect world, like in a perfect legal system, which obviously America's legal system right now is not perfect at all. As evidenced by the fact that the slow test, the Supreme Court's literally trying to overturn Roe v. Wade, which is like something vehemently like, I opposed the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. But in a theoretical perfect system, I don't think the notification should be legal with a perfect law. But I recognize that will probably never happen in my lifetime, and I recognize that American economy doesn't have that perfect system. However, like this, I think this is more of a theoretical question, right? But if it's a practical question, I'd say I strongly agree with this. But if it's a theoretical one, I'd say, I'll just go with partially disagree. So my political knowledge should be spread as much as possible. I don't know. I don't really care. My political views and my political values. Nobody has to agree with them. And nobody has to disagree with them. Right? So to me, it's me. I don't care what if other people agree or disagree with me. As long as they're good people, I don't really care. Countries with authoritarian governments should be denounced. Yeah, I strongly agree. I hate authoritarianism, and I'm a much stronger supporter of authoritarianism. Globalization is not good. Yeah, I strongly agree with this. I think globalization is inevitable eventually at one point. Our next question. So culture should make learn from each other to make progress quicker and easier. I strongly agree with this. I think learning from different cultures is important. It can definitely improve the cultures themselves, right? Violent action should be made to countries that violate basic human rights. I agree with this, but I'm also very keenly aware that the fact that what's considered basic human rights can be used as a pretense, as like an excuse for countries to like take violent actions on the countries they just simply don't like, even if there's no human rights abuses are happening, or even if they're completely fabricated. Yeah, and basically, I believe as well that since it's kind of hard to tell if human rights is kind of a term. I'd say in most cases I do agree though that violent should be made to countries with basic human rights. I do agree. Different countries and cultures have different preferences for the type of government. Yeah, I agree. All countries should solve its internal issues before focusing on external issues. I strongly agree. Conflict should be avoided as much as possible. I strongly agree with that. If I were to support an international union organization at all, I'll only support international organizations that are from political beliefs. I mean, I partially agree. I don't know. I partially agree, I guess. Like, I'm not like, okay, so for this question in particular, right? I don't really care if the organizations follow my political beliefs. So actually, I'd say I actually disagree personally. My nation's interests should be considered more important than that of other nations. I think I strongly agree. I think everybody does. National sovereignty is very important. It is currently very important in my opinion, but I think it won't be as important in the future. Strongly agree. It's a good thing that nationalism is on the rise. Back. Wait. Okay. Okay, no, I don't think so. Nationalism is good in terms of like Canadian nationalism or like American nationalism, right? Or like Mexican nationalism, or like stuff like that. But I don't know. I generally don't think it's a good thing. And so I'd say I disagree with this because it creates a lot of violence, especially American nationalism. Like, anyways, if a certain group has a very strong group identity, an independence referendum should be held. I I mean, it depends on the situation, right? So if this group has a very strong group identity and they're in a union, which is generally beneficial for them, I don't think an independence referendum should be held like what happened with like Brexit, I guess, because that was a horrible disaster for Britain. But yeah, in my opinion, they would have been much better if they stayed in the EU. At the same time, if it's something like I don't know, like Scottish people or Welsh people trying to break off from the UK, or like some states like Texas or like Alaska trying to break off from America. I don't think that should be either. But in some instances, when there's like an actual oppression of these groups, then I think then they should definitely become independent. So I'd say I partially disagree, but not fully. Each nation should govern itself with minimal or no foreign intervention. No, I strongly agree with this 100%. My nation is great. America is great. Yeah, I think America's great. Honestly, it's my favorite country. A global, although there have been other countries that are good. So a global nation where all countries are united will be beneficial to humanity. I think so. I think so. Some people disagree, but I think so. A global organization that is generally beneficial should hold a substantial amount of power. No, I strongly agree with this, definitely. I support the regional unions, like the European Union. No, yeah, 100%. I support European unions, stuff like that, 100%. It is important that we put aside our differences and cooperate as a single community. Yes, I think that's very important as well. Military spending is a waste of money. Oh, yeah, no, I strongly agree. I mean, okay, no, actually, I strongly agree with this. I do think military spending is a waste of money because it's mostly useless most of the time. Borders should be borders around the world should be less strict. Okay, so like I don't think this should be true, especially in like wartime, like we're seeing with like Russia and Ukraine right now. I don't think it should be like less because I strongly disagree. It's important that we maintain our culture and tradition. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's too that important. I don't know. I feel like culture and tradition are more so weaponized than actually valued. But I'd say, you know what? I personally agree. Tradition is vital for society. I I don't know. I wait. Go back to the previous question. I actually think I partially disagree and I partially disagree. So now I'll explain why. It's because I don't know. I feel like traditions can lead to a lot of lack of progress and a lot of backwards thinking within people, especially like religious traditions as well, like Christian traditions and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like it's not a good thing overall. Personally, I don't support it at all. Oh no, okay, no. The way I said it, maybe, but I do support tradition. I just think tradition can stunt progress, unfortunately, which is why I somewhat don't. always support it in all instances. So I consider abortion as a form of murder. I strongly disagree. I mentioned this before. Why before? So traditional medicines are often more effective than modern medicine. Than modern medicines. I don't know. I'd assume not though. I'd assume that modern medicines are way better because practically during like the past 50 or 100 years, we've made so much technological and medicinal advances, right? Like the healthcare industry as well. I think this is just completely untrue. So I would say strongly disagree. A person cannot be moral without a religion or belief. I strongly disagree. I think anybody can be moral. And a person with a religion or belief may not be moral. You know? Religion is mostly fictional. Like I'm gonna probably piss off a lot of people, including the people who are Christians right now. I do think religion is mostly fictional. It's not to say I disagree with that. I think religion is a good thing. I think it unites people, it makes communities, and I think it's overall a positive on our society. And I'm Christian myself, so you know what I mean. Um, but I do think it was man-made. I don't think it was any like you know. Do I believe in God? Yes, I believe in God, 100%. Do I think religion is man-made and fictional? I think a lot of it might be. So I'd say I agree with this. Traditions are of no value on their own. Not, I disagree with this. I think some traditions are very valuable, while others are horrible. So I disagree with this. I support the LGBTQ community. Okay, I strongly agree. I support the Black Lives Matter organization. Okay, so listen, I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this. Look, Black Lives Matter. Okay, so here's the problem with Black Lives Matter, in my opinion. Right? I think this is not a good. I don't know. I'm not black. I'm white, so I don't know. I'm a cishet white man, as I said before. So I don't know. I personally don't support stuff about Black Lives Matter. Right? I think I strongly disagree with Black Lives Matter. Strongly disagree with the statement. If taxation exists, churches should be taxed the same way the other institutions are taxed. Yeah, I agree. I don't see why not. Evolution is a fact. Okay, evolution, I think, is widely accepted in the scientific community, and I think it's true. I can't be 100% sure on this, so I'll just say agree. Rapid change often leads to the worsening of people's lives. I mean, this could go both ways, right? Because yeah, sometimes it does lead to the worsening of people's lives when it's like a dictatorship or when it's like a monarchy or something like that. But it can go like it can like also rapid change can also lead to a very positive increase in people's lives, like in Japan after World War II, right? So it's a rapid change and led to like, lots of benefits for people. So I don't know. I, I disagree with this. I partially disagree with this. I don't think this often. I think it's sometimes. I don't think it often. Although I don't know enough about this about it to be 100% sure. Reforms should happen gradually and slowly. I partially agree with this because in most instances I do think reforms should happen gradually and slowly. But in instances where there's a lot of injustice, where there's just the system is way too corrupt, I think then reforms have to be quick and decisive, right? Or else the people can like during that gradual and slow process, somebody can like reverse all the progress being made, right? So that's why I think sometimes it does have to be quick and decisive, like the Civil War in America, but most of the time I think it can be gradual and slow, and I think it should happen gradually and slowly without violence, as I said before. All reforms should happen without violence. I strongly agree with that. It's sometimes moral to crush a revolution or protest by force. Okay, so here's the key word. It says sometimes, right? So, yeah, again, I think it's sometimes moral. Is it often moral? Like in most instances, I don't know. That really depends. I don't know enough protest. Like I know about the French Revolution, I guess. In that one, maybe because I feel like the French Revolution, although it was ultimately for a good cause, it caused a lot of anarchy, political instability. It was ultimately like a left-leaning thing. And although I support it, because strongly in good with monarchy and like Louis became Louis 16 and like all the unfair taxation and everything, I completely agree with that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it. I ultimately think it caused the lives of a bunch of French people, at least in the short term, for like 3 to 5 years, a minimum. I don't know. Okay, and again, I'm not a history major or anything. I don't know much about this, but I do think that like, for at least like 3 to 5 years at minimum, it did cause at least some short term negative effects on French people. At the very least, we did like public executions, there's anarchy and everything. So I'm not sure. So in that instance, I do think it would be moral. I think it would be a better option, even if it. I don't know. Would it be moral? I don't know, but it would. I think it would be a better option to crush it by force, right? And I think it would lead to better outcomes because not as much violence and political instability. Hopefully, although I could be wrong with that. But sometimes, I'd say partially agree because of the sometimes. Like I'm not 100% sure. Like how often this is, right? I don't know. Political leaders should change the system as little as possible in region. Okay, okay. I don't know. I think if it's working as intended, like I believe in the code, like don't fix what's not broken, right? So if the system isn't broken, I think they should change it as long as possible because like working fine. But in a lot of instances, even in like American, like even the American political system, I don't think it's really working as intended. I think it's horribly getting going wrong, especially with, you know, my opinions about both the Republicans and Democrats. I hate the Democrats, to be honest. I like Republicans a bit more. Actually, I really like Republicans a lot more. I self-identify as a Republican. I support the Republican Party. I know a lot of I'm going to get a lot of shit for this because a lot of like social media is like left leaning and to cancel anybody who's right leaning and to cancel anybody who's conservative or whatever. I personally support the Republican Party. I'm thinking, I mean, I didn't vote in the last elections, but if I could, I had the opportunity to, I probably would have voted for Donald Trump. Because because I'm too young, right? I'm too young to vote. I'm not old enough to vote. I'm like only like I'm less than 18, but I would vote for Donald Trump's party for sure. I would vote for Donald Trump. I don't know. I consider myself generally progressive, but I don't know. I feel like the Republican Party, I just like them more because of their stance on gun issues and stuff. Which I'm like a big supporter of, and their stance on a few other like, fringe issues that don't really matter much, but it can make a significant impact. And I feel like at the same time, with the Republican Party, most of the stuff I do agree more with the Democrats with, but I hate the Democrats because they say one thing, they claim one thing, they campaign one thing, but they do something else, right? I don't think people like Biden are moderate at all. I think they're just straight up center, right? I think they're right wing people. I think Bernie Sanders and AOC are like center left, like they're center or maybe center left. Like it can be, you can make the argument that there's like center left, but I don't think they're more left wing than that, especially in like European context and shit. So it's like and I personally am like, way more left. I'm like at least at bare minimum I'm as left wing as like Bernie Sanders and AOC, but probably a little bit more as well. So this question, I'm not sure. I don't know. It depends on the context. Right? This is definitely depends on the context. Thinking in the long term is thinking more important than thinking in the short term. I strongly agree, but this is so hard for like teenagers and young adults and shit. So it's like yeah, the current political system in my nation is 100%. Yeah, America has a very flawed political system. Definitely, we should avoid delaying political reform and change. I agree with this. I think the reform and change in American society and like, political reform and change specifically, I think it's very necessary. If the cause is justified in my political ideology and peaceful reform does not work, revolution and aggressive measures should be considered. I strongly disagree with this. I almost like revolution and aggressive measures. I think it's very rare. Like the French Revolution is one of those very rare instances where I feel like it might have been at least somewhat justified, even though it didn't have the best. No, actually, no. I do support the French Revolution and like what it was trying to fight for, but I think I just had shit consequences. Right? I think it had horrible consequences for people, led to anarchy, mass executions, like mass distrust in the government, etc. I don't think it was all net positive in the short term. In the long term, it definitely was 100%, but in the short term, I don't think it was a negative positive. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it never can happen, but in most instances, I don't think revolution and aggressive measures should be considered. I think it should be peaceful measures. So I say disagree. Technology is negatively affecting modern society. Okay, okay. This is a statement made by many boomers, which I absolutely hate. I think this is completely wrong. This is complete BS. I think it's very positively affecting modern society, and I'm all for technological innovations, technological advances, and just because it makes the people's lives easier, right? And ultimately, what I want to do, what do I want? I want an easier life. Right? Obviously, I strongly disagree with that statement. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have become a disaster for the human race. I mean, I strongly disagree. But yeah, sure, it's affected the climate and the environment in a bad way. But who cares, bro? It improved the standard of living by so much. I don't have any statistical analysis or empirical data to back this, but I'm like 99% sure it did, almost 100, right, basically. Usage of genetic modification for animals and plants should be minimized. I have no idea what this is about, honestly. Like, I've heard this so many times, but I just got no clue what this is about. Modernity and social progress has led to a decrease of happiness and often lacks meaning. The first part I disagree with. The second part I somewhat agree with. So I'd say partially disagree with this because it 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 has. I feel like it's led to an increase in happiness. Does it often lack meaning though? Yeah, it does. It does often lack meaning. Like not okay, not often, but it does sometimes lack meaning. Like SJW shit and like not shit, but SJW stuff. All these radical trends, feminists, etc. I think that a lot of this is just identity politics, which exists for no reason. Honestly, okay, here's the thing, right? I'm very neutral on like social issues, like gay rights, gay marriage, etc., trans rights, LGBTQ plus, etc. I think they should just be accepted into society. I don't think anything more should be said about them. Right? They should just be accepted. They shouldn't be discriminated against. They should have the equal rights and opportunities as everybody else in America. I don't think they should be discriminated at all against. I think it's for all races as well, not just white people, black people, Latinos, African Americans. Asians, except everybody should have equal rights and opportunities within the American system, which unfortunately that doesn't exist right now, and I understand that, but I don't know. I just don't really care about it, probably because it doesn't affect me that much. You know what I mean? Again, I'm a white cis het, I don't know what the fuck do I know, right? But I'd say I agree with this. Well, no, no, sorry, I partially disagree with this. I partially disagree with this for sure. Society was better many years ago than it is today. No, I strongly disagree with this. The technological advancements from today have made society much better than it was many years ago. If artificial intelligence can rule better than humans, then they should rule. Okay, I've seen way too many horror movies like Matrix, the Terminator, etc., where artificial intelligence is like just like horrible for humans and it has like disastrous consequences. In my opinion, I do think artificial intelligence can rule better than humans. But should they rule? I don't know. I feel like it's not gonna be that much worse like than the worst human leaders like Stalin, Mao, Hitler, etc. I don't think they're gonna be that much worse. So I'd say agree. I don't know. Oh, by the way, I'm like a very modern, futuristic person. I'm like all for technological advancement. I'm like a lot of boomers, heck, even Gen X's and some like millennials, and even some Gen Zs. Maybe even some people in my generation probably disagree with me. Genetic modification of food can avoid effects from droughts and floods. I have no idea, so I have to say I'm sure. I'm sure about that. Automation is very beneficial for society. I strongly agree with this. I think it's very beneficial for society. Definitely, it makes life much easier. Genetic modification of humans is especially benefits of this is another one where I just don't know enough about it to have an opinion. So I'm just unsure. Societal progress is heading in the right direction. I'd say I agree. I think generally, like, even though I said, like, I don't really care about like the transition and stuff like that. I think it's important. I think they should get equal rights and stuff. I just personally am not very involved in it. I'm not very invested in it, so I don't really care about it that much. But I agree. I agree. We should embrace modern technology rather than avoid it. I strongly agree. I think so many boomers and Gen Xers don't understand this though. Getting past cycles, physical limitations to technology would be beneficial to mankind. Strongly agree, 100%. I think this is very important. 100% agree. Transhumanism will be inevitable in the near future in most nations. In the near future, in the future, sure. In the near future, I don't know. I partially disagree with that. I support transhumanism personally. A lot of people don't, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't think it's, and I do think it's going to happen in the future. I just don't think it's going to be in the near future. So I partially disagree. People are overly worrying about physical human modifications nowadays. I have no clue because I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about human modification or genetic modification. Technology that improves mental and physical capability shouldn't be used in any political system. Bro, I strongly disagree with it. Wait, what? It says technology that improves mental and physical capability shouldn't be used in any political system. I strongly agree with that. No, obviously it should be. What the fuck? This is stupid. That's a stupid opinion. Anyone who says strongly agree with that, I don't know. I think I think they have an issue in the head. You know what I'm saying? The risks of transhumanism overweight its the benefits. No, I strongly disagree with this. I think the benefits of transhumanism greatly overweighs the risks. Transhumanism is not required in any country within the next 50 years. I don't think it's required, so I agree with this. I think it would be a positive, so I'm going to only say partially agree. Law principles should be codified into a referable system. Okay, what is this? What's a referable system? I guess maybe yeah. I think precedent is very important. I think overturning Roe v. One of the reasons I opposed it. I think a political student called Dustin even says it's like, it overturns precedent, right? Yeah, I don't think it's a good thing. So I strongly agree with that. If a law system exists, lawmakers and legal experts should hold more influence than just judges. I agree with this, partially at least, but I don't know. I don't know much about this, but I feel like lawmakers and legal experts who are experts on the law should hold more influence than judges. But maybe this is wrong. I have no idea, but probably at least minimum, one good minimum. Courts should reference other judicial decisions. Strongly agree with this. This is why I hate OVA. The judges and legislators, because there's precedent to overturn another law that is precedent, but I don't know. I just think that they would overturn OVA. I fully 100% support it would be good. If judges and legislators, if judges should hold more power than legislators, okay, first of all, we have to see what judges is, right? Judges is okay. I mean, no, I disagree with this. I think legislators should hold more power than judges because judges are just regular people, right? You need by it, right? everybody fight, but we make judgments. So I just said we make the opposite. I think legislation is trying to make sure how it is. But a decision cannot be made in courts. Relevant cases in the past should be referenced. 100%, strongly agree. 100%. Unusual cases cannot be decided with original law. I do agree with this. I think there are a lot of extreme fringe or unusual cases that will classify as unusual cases. That I think varies from person to person. But I do think in general, unusual cases cannot be decided with original law because there are always some exceptional situations. I agree. A rehabilitative system is unjust. Strongly disagree. I think a rehabilitative system is way better than a punishment system, which is what we currently have in the U.S. Punishment should be more. Okay, wow. The exact next question. Punishment should be valued more than that of rehabilitation. Again, strongly disagree. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I mean, I agree with this, but I think the number of criminals it's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate is very, very small. So although I do agree with this, it's a very, very small portion of the population. I support capital punishment. I don't know. I might get heat for this, but I do support crime punishment. I recognize everything about how innocent people are murdered by the death penalty, etc. But I don't know. I feel like society is currently unjust and capitalist systems and punishment will help people who are like inflicting cases like Sylvia Luck and you know what I mean, like who committed violent acts, atrocious accidents on the people, but didn't get this appropriate punishment. I think that's a I think that's horrible legal system. I do think the legal system is biased towards white people. I will give the white people that right. The legal system is very biased towards white people. What you know I hope that change, right? I want equality for all people, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. Right? I want equality for everybody, equality for all. So I support capital punishment. Strongly, yeah, I support capital punishment. Everybody deserves a second chance. I think most people do. Everybody? No, no, I don't think everybody does. A mass murderer or like a terrorist, I don't think they deserve a second chance. The 9/11 hackers, I don't think they had hackers. They didn't get us. They can't get us. They died. But if they didn't die. I don't think they would deserve a second chance. System of equal outcomes should be established. No, no, no. Equal outcomes is impossible to do unless you make everyone the most common denominator. Although something I do wonder, what happened if you make everybody the highest common numerator, right? It's like I don't know. It's almost never happens. People should be treated equally, regardless of their groups and characteristics. Strongly agree. Even though equal opportunities can lead to equal outcomes, society should still focus on equal opportunities and not equal outcomes. Strongly agree. Hierarchies will inevitably be formed in every society at any time. I don't know. I partially agree, but I don't know. I've heard there are a lot of good arguments for anarchism, where hierarchies are not necessarily inevitable. But I think it will be inevitable because anarchism like seeks to abolish the state and kind of abolish the country and like or not the country but not abolish like, modern society, right? So maybe they want to abolish the state in modern society because it's inevitable the hierarchies will be formed. So what I partially agree with this. Any well-functioning society requires a hierarchy. I don't know. I partially agree with this, but at the same time, I could go either way. Partially disagree or disagree. I don't have much of an opinion on it, but maybe I'm unsure. I don't know. If we accept migrants into our borders, the migrants should be expected to assimilate into our culture. I agree. I don't know. They can still keep the culture definitely. Wait, let's just check real quick. Assimilate. Okay, yeah, no, definitely. I do think they should be expected to assimilate into culture, but I do think they should be able to keep the culture as well. Multiculturalism is unrealistic. I strongly disagree. I think multiculturalism is very realistic. What? Some cultures are inherently superior to other cultures. Oh, loaded question. I do agree with this. I strongly agree with this. I think American culture, even though for all its flaws and like shortcomings, is way better than like Iraqi culture, like Iranian culture, with the Middle Eastern like Taliban members and Afghanistan members like killing each other every day. I think it's much better than like radical Islamist extremists. So yeah. Our nation should be more diverse. Strongly agree. Monoculturalism is disastrous for society. I don't know. I personally disagree with this, but I understand the arguments both for and against. I'm going to say so, although I can't really comment because I am like in the majority culture. So I would say I am unsure. Race and ethnicity should be unimportant for everyone. I agree. I agree. I don't think race and ethnicity should be important at all. So I strongly agree with this. Compromises should be made in order to suit the needs of most people. I agree with this as well. I think compromise is very important. So a lot of people don't like compromise, but I think it's like one of the most essential things in functioning democracy. Compromising can avoid unnecessary conflict. I strongly agree with this. Adopting radical ideas is impossible unless compromises are made. I strongly agree with this as well. A transitional state should be made. Transitional state was that Okay, this is science, chemistry, the concept. No, I think I understand what this means. I'm not sure though. I don't know. My ideology should be established as quick as possible. No, I disagree with this. My ideology is not going to be accepted by everyone, and I don't think everybody should accept it. Otherwise, it's going to be a high mind society, right? My political ideals can be achieved within 10 years. I don't think they're very radical or extreme. I honestly do think they can be achieved with like 10 years, with like Bernie Sanders and USC more prominent, who more accurately represent my views and ideas. I think he can honestly. My ideology is sometimes considered extreme. My ideology is almost never considered extreme. I just talk to people, right? I talk to many people in America. No, not almost none of them consider my ideology extreme. I strongly disagree with this. I'm very moderate, even though Joe Biden. Right? I'm just more left wing than like the center right people we have in government right now, like Joe Biden and Joe Manchin. I guess. Violence and revolutions are required in order to establish an ideology. No, no, what? No, strongly disagree. What? No. The current mainstream societal attitudes are problematic. I 100% agree with this. Political views are very different from current articles. Also, very different. They're not. Okay. It depends on how you say very, right? They're not like socialism and communism, but they are quite a bit different than current status quo. So I'd say partially agree. Politics is boring to me, bro. Strongly disagree. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video in the first place. Nearly all politicians are evil and problematic, no matter what their political ideals are. What? No, I strongly disagree. I don't think, bro. I don't think you can make that generalization for any career, not just politicians, like engineers, businessmen, etc. Politics should be avoided in daily life. Okay, I partially disagree with this, or I disagree with it because I don't think it can. Maybe it should to avoid division, but I just don't think it can. I don't think that's realistic. Politics is very important for society and shouldn't be ignored. I strongly agree with this. Most things can only be accomplished through a group. I partially agree. Like, okay, it depends on like what you're trying to do, right? Like, if it's something like high scale, high like high effort, like solving global warming or reducing reducing carbon emissions, trying to solve global warming or trying to solve climate change, then yeah, I think it only can be established routine. But just like little things, I think it can be done in real life, like cleaning a room, cleaning a bedroom, and making like wiping the floor, etc., or like brewing the floor. I think it can be accomplished through individually as well. So I'd say, I guess most of this, I'd say agree as long as it's long, like high scale, like as long as it's a big scale. If the current career system is being used, a person's personal work life should stay separate. I 100% agree. I don't even think that's a political position, or it shouldn't be. Being self-sufficient as a person is a positive trait. I strongly agree with that. Yeah, changing the status quo using violent methods is mostly unhelpful. I strongly agree with that. Pacifism is generally unrealistic when protesting of the government. I strongly disagree with that because I think pacifism is the best. Idealists are mostly unrealistic. Being an idealist is kind of like being like inherently idealistic, like unrealistic, right? I think it's inherently. Are all idealists unrealistic? No, but is it like inherently? I know at least some a little bit unrealistic, like as an ideology. Like yeah, I do think so. We should not ignore ideologies that seem radical, but has a chance of success. I agree. I agree. We should be more optimistic towards a variety of different ideas. I strongly agree with that. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Oh, this is like a death penalty. I'll call it maybe. No, since I support the death penalty and I support this as well. Strongly agree. We should judge an action based on its consequences. Oh, okay. Okay. This depends. This depends on so many different things. I'm be very different because it just depends on so many different factors, right? Sometimes, yeah, sometimes I 100% agree. It should be judged based on consequences. Other times, not necessarily. Other times, I think the intent is more important, but it just depends on the context and the situation, right? An action should be seen as right or wrong to a set of rules and principles. I agree with this. I agree with this. Intention is more important than consequences of judging the action. Again, this depends on what happens. This depends on the context of the action. This depends on the circumstances surrounding the action. This depends on like the factors involving that action. Right? So major and sometimes the closest match to me is Georgism, right? Okay, what the hell is this? Let's check. Georgism is also called it's known as a single testimony is an economic ideology holding that although people should value should only value the producers of economic right belongs to land, including all natural resources, comments and no one should be unequally to all members of society developed from the reason. Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, I'm personally against social justice, but from like the first paragraph, it seems good, right? So next match is geo-libertarianism, mutualism, and social democracy. Yeah, social democracy is definitely what I support the most. I'm considering myself as the most collectivism. Oh wow, more collective, I'm more individualistic. I'm more peaceful, much more peaceful. I'd say. Idealistic. I'm more idealistic than realistic, and consequential. I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle between consequential and DM intention. Right? Results access. So capitalism, socialism. Wow, capitalism surpassed socialism, I think. Free, planned. Wow, wow, okay. Libertarian or authoritarian? Oh, wow. Libertarian more. Autocracy or democracy? Autocracy, democracy, split 50-50. Holy. Globalism or nationalism? Globalism is better. Particular or universal? Oh, wow, universal more. Tradition or progress? Progress more. Conserve or reform? Reform more. Decelerate or accelerate? Ah, I don't know. I feel like this is about even. Maybe a bit more on the accelerate side. Maybe I have no idea. Primitivism or transhumanism? Way more transhumanism. Civil law or common law? Common law much more punitive or rehabilitative? Much more rehabilitative. Hierarchy or equality? Much more equality. Multicultural or monocultural? Much more multicultural. Persist or compromise? Compromise. Or direct or transitional? Direct seems like radical or moderate. Yeah, this is exactly straight down the middle. Politics or political? Exactly straight down the middle. Individualism or collectivism? Wow, more individualism. Wow. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Revolution or peaceful? Much more peaceful. Idealism or realism? More idealism than realism. Consequential or deontological? Oh my god, way more deontological than consequential. The above are the composition. It displays as a different spectrums. You can send the above are compass results generated and displayed as a different spectrums. You can send the results of this compass by copying this in the reality results you know. Yeah, I support like social democracy the most. Not democratic socialism, but social democracy. Yeah, I support it the most. I'd say. But Georgism, eh? Wow, Georgism. Okay. Well, what is it? Let's check the main tenets of this. Oh, okay. I mean, I've never heard of Georgism. I don't think I care about that much. But, this is one of the best political systems according to what Mr. B, which whom I greatly trust. So, if it says Georgism, probably is Georgism. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, that's what it. But even though it says Georgism, I classify myself as more as a social, so not a Democrat, socialist, a social democrat, and I'd say I have very moderate views compared to radical socialists, economists, and even compared to like maybe the American political spectrum are rather extreme, like Bernie Sanders in the USA, but I don't consider that really extreme at all, like the European or even Canadian right? So it's like whatever. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. I hope you guys like from this survey. I hope you guys understand my views a bit more. From now on, I probably will start acting way more right wing and way more like the pro conservative and shit like that and stuff like that. But pro Republican, like pro Donald Trump, pro runners, etc., etc. Maybe even anti-abortion. Who knows? Maybe. Although I'm planning to, I'm going to start acting more like a Republican most likely. Uh, that's what I'm hoping to do. But these are my true positions. These are how I truly feel. And I think I'm pretty balanced. And even here, right? So more social, more capitalism, more authoritarian, more libertarian. It's mostly on the social democracy, right? I do class myself as a social democrat, and I do like social democracy the best. In my opinion, probably because I'm very moderate person. I'm not too extreme. I'm not too radical. What else? I mean, there's nothing much else for me to say, right? Other than these are my true political views, and if I say something from now on, that's like anti, like if I say I'm like anti-Roe v. Wade, or anti-rape abortion, etc., just know that it's probably not true. And I'm just trying to start. I'm just trying to start a culture war of some sort, and yeah, that's about it. Um, Thanks for listening, I guess, and I guess like just have a good day, guys.